Jackson State is a top 10 team in the nation, and they just don't care. Also, we need to pay a little bit more respect to Texas Southern's bounce back after their week 1 loss. Oh yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off, and unfortunately for both of us, it will cut off, that does not mean that your journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. You can see that right there on the bottom third. If you are watching on YouTube, for my audio people, what's up to y'all too? Now, Jackson State has achieved something monumental, and they're acting as if it's just a scrimmage victory. Jackson State is a top 10 team in the nation, and they do not care. And I don't mean one of these fake not caring. I think that Deion Sanders legitimately could give two you-know-whats about being a top 10 team in the FCS. Genuine. It was unprovoked, his denouncing of this achievement. It was unprovoked, him saying all of the things that we're about to break down in this opening segment. And to me, it said a lot. I listened to a 1:20 clip of Deion Sanders speak about this, and he said a lot in 1:20, and he said a lot without really saying too much. But let's break down what the achievement truly is. There are two really major D2 polls that Jackson State has now leaped into the top 10 of. And in the stats poll, right, the stats perform poll, which you might remember from some of the All-American teams that the HBCU players are a part of, they jump from 11 to 9. Then you go into the FCS coaches poll, which I think really holds a lot of weight. They jump from 11 to 8. So last week, I should say, coming into the Mississippi Valley State game, they were the 11th ranked team in the country. Now they're either 8 or 9. Let's just go ahead and say 8 because it's the poll that I like the most. And then also it's the poll they're the highest in. So it's kind of a win-win situation. But they are the number 8 team in the country, and they do not care. They do not care at all. These polls, for if you're curious, these polls are just a way so you know it's a ranking system. We know it is. It's a ranking system where you know where you lie amongst the opinion of some voters in the FCS subdivision, right? And in the FCS subdivision, they were able to hit number 8. This is monumental, but Deion Sanders clearly does not care. And honestly, if you were to read to me the tagline that Deion Sanders does not care about Jackson State being a top 10 team in the country, I would be shocked. Matter of fact, I would probably call you a liar. If I did not hear this myself, there's no way that I would have believed that Deion Sanders didn't care about something like this. However, when I listen to his reasoning for not really caring, it lines up with a lot of the things that he said. But let's first talk about why I would not have believed it and why I initially thought that it went away from some of the things that he had been preaching for Jackson State, even though it does not, right? So let's just get that out the way. This was my previous thought. I thought he would have been ecstatic about being the number 8 team in the country because it's national praise, national acclaim, and recognition, however you want to phrase it. All three of those things kind of go into the same category. So that national recognition, and then also the FCS dominance. See, Deion Sanders has always wanted national acclaim. And I don't mean that he's hungry for the spotlight. I don't mean that he's thirsty for the cameras. I'm speaking strictly as Coach Sanders. Skip the primetime. Coach Sanders has always wanted national acclaim for himself and other HBCUs. He's always wanted to see his players get the respect that they deserve. Right now, he's campaigning for Shedeur to be a national candidate for the Heisman. It's very rare that an FCS player is up on that stage, but he is campaigning for that, and that is a national thing. He wants to get the respect for HBCUs from everybody. So I would think that he would cheer being a top 10 team because now they are respecting you nationally. Even though you've been pretty high, top 10 is top 10. Even if you're 11, it's high, it's right next to 10, but it's not top 10. So now you're top 10. And I'm saying this is an achievement that you would think you would show some love to. I don't think that they got that high. I don't think they got all the way to 10 last year. Okay, but he doesn't show no love to it. That's fine. The reason he doesn't care is because he prefers, or it has nothing to do with the Celebration Bowl, which also kind of shocked me. I'm sitting there like, if you would have just asked me, is Deion Sanders a Celebration Bowl or a playoff guy? Because we know this is an argument that does continue quite a bit. But if you would ask me which side that Deion Sanders is on, I likely would have told you he's on team playoffs because of the national recognition, national acclaim, and then also the FCS dominance that he has said he wanted to set out and do. Him and Ashley Robinson have both said they want to be on top of the whole FCS dominated, right? But then he explained why the Celebration Bowl was more important. It's the compensation. And of all of those things that Deion Sanders represents, the national acclaim, the respect for HBCUs nationally, let's put it that way, the dominating the FCS, one thing that I feel like his strongest stance was we're not playing any money games. He said that before this season even started. And it was something that I felt was his strongest stance because he has then came back and talked about why these other HBCUs who are playing money games, why they should be getting more. So the compensation, the dollar amount has always been something big for him. So when he says the playoffs isn't paying us, when you go to bowl games at the end of a season, like the Sugar Bowl or the Rose Bowl or the Cotton Bowl, you get paid for those games. You do. Those teams get paid to go there, but the FCS teams are not getting paid in the early rounds of the playoffs. That was a problem for Deion Sanders. He saw no benefit in it. But however, the benefit was in the Celebration Bowl because they pay you to come there. It's the business side of these things. And Deion Sanders, clearly, a lot of times, he's been about raising the talent level at HBCUs. However, he's also been heavily involved in discussing raising the business level of HBCUs and increasing what the dollar amount that we're earning and what our asking price can be in the future. So all of these things line up. So being a top 10 team does not matter to him. But to me, to you, this is a big deal. I do not care that Deion Sanders is doing the whole, hey man, it doesn't help us in the long run, because it doesn't. You can't make the playoffs. So where you rank really is irrelevant. It does not matter. It's not going to help you in seeding or any of the other things that the other FCS teams are probably going to have to worry about. Mind you, he said these things about the Celebration Bowl and denounced the playoffs. He spoke highly about the Celebration Bowl, denounced the playoffs, and denounced the rankings relatively unprovoked. The only thing that could have been provoked was the rankings because he was asked about it. This means a lot to me. This is a big deal. When I look at the amount of weapons that Deion Sanders and Jackson State has on that team, it's crazy. The defense is a boa constrictor, right? They are an absolutely suffocating defense that has dominated pretty much everybody that they have went against. The closest thing to not dominating is Grambling, who didn't score any points in the second half. This is a real dominant defense, right? Let's go to that offense. Shane Hooks, Kevin Coleman, Dallas Daniels, Willie Gaines. We don't even see Malachi Wideman that much, but we know who he is if he has to get in there. I thought Sevion Wilkerson was a foregone conclusion to be the leading bell cow at the running back position. Sante Marshall comes in the next game, gets over 100 yards. There are so many weapons on this team, and they have a quarterback that is being campaigned to be a Heisman candidate and is one of the best in the FCS. This is ranked by the NCAA. He is currently ranked at number 2, the second best FCS quarterback. This is a stacked team, and they are getting the national recognition that though the coach does not care, I do care. I do think it's a big deal. You should as well. Don't allow his nonchalant demeanor make you think this is not a big deal. This is a big, stinking deal, and we should celebrate it. Now, going forward, we're going to be talking about Texas Southern, who did have a bad week one. They lost the game to Prairie View, a major game, but instead of hanging their head, they have bounced back strong, and I'm going to tell you why you should look beyond the record to really respect the way that they have bounced back. However, before I get into that, let me tell you about our friends at Bet Online. Look at the bottom of the screen, right? They have the best odds, lines, and props than ever before. And here's where you need to go to find the latest odds, news, and scores for all of your betting needs. It's football season. You guys should be dialed in. Whoever you're watching, if it's the Saints, the shocking Eagles. The Eagles have stunned me this year, right? Go check out Locked On Eagles, by the way. How about let's put some money down on the over-under for Jalen Hurts passing yards this weekend. Let's talk about Jameis Winston, his over-unders for my Saints, right? Let's talk about these player props that you can do, and it doesn't just have to be the result of the game. They have everything on BetOnline. It's my favorite place to put money down, and I suggest it to my friends anytime I get the chance to. Even those who I've already suggested it to, you're going to hear it at least 2-3 more times before the year is over. And that's because I truly do believe in everything that BetOnline does and everything that they provide, including football and all of the major sports, including combat sports. Now, with that being said, you know what it is. They are the fastest and easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. As we keep on rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day every day. And today's word of the day is fructify, and it means to make fruitful or productive or to bear fruit or profit. And I want to talk about Texas Southern's bounce back because some people might not recognize it because the record is not great. They are currently sitting at 1-3. And I told you, I don't panic too much about 1-3, specifically when you look at who somebody has faced. I talked about that with Grambling. It's all about the context. That's a big difference. And I'm going to compare Texas Southern to probably about 3 schools in this one segment. But that's the difference between Grambling and Texas Southern is the context around the record. You have Hugh Jackson panicking. Or not, I don't say panicking. You have Hugh Jackson taking off the G on the helmet, which is a big deal to me. Meanwhile, you have Clarence McKinney, who is emotional in press conferences. Now, granted, that's after a win versus against a loss, but still, it feels as if the confidence level in Houston, Texas is pretty high around those Tigers. But let's talk about this bounce back because Texas Southern has defined looking good in defeat since week 1. And that might seem like, okay, you looked good in defeat. But no, this is impressive. Let's compare them to another school. Let's talk about Tennessee State, right? The fraudulent TSU, right? The wannabe TSU. But y'all know I got to get my digs in every time, man. But Tennessee State, they opened up the season with 2 losses against Eastern Washington and then Jackson State. But we were able to acknowledge them, not even just give them a pass, but even kind of praise them a little bit for going against teams that we assume are better than them and play right there with them. That's something that they were able to do. You can't say Texas Southern hasn't done the same thing. Arguably, I don't want to say better talent, but they're doing it against FBS talent. So I'll say better talent. Right? We can make that legitimate argument, right? So you put Eastern Washington and Jackson State up against UTSA and University of North Texas. I'm not gonna sit here and say that either team is washing either, but it's right there comparable, and at least they have the FBS status, right? So they're doing it against high competition, very similar situations. Why is it that we cannot acknowledge that Texas Southern has looked really good in defeat? Maybe is it because the games aren't as close? I would say they're going against higher, even better talent. So maybe the game would not be as close, and it makes sense. But you look at this game against UNT, right? Because I want to talk about them. I want to talk about these games specifically. We're going to keep that same energy that we did with Tennessee State. That energy that we gave Tennessee State for having close games against teams that we know are better than them or we think are going to be better than them. We are going to give Texas Southern that same energy and that same love for what they were able to do. Since losing to Prairie View, they have shut out Southern, a game that nobody really saw coming. Those who say they did, I highly doubt anybody saw it going like that. So you shut out Southern, and that is an impact victory, and now you win your first conference game of the year in that game as well against a team that a lot of people felt was the favorite, and you beat them handedly. All right, that's fine. But let's get into the 2 losses, because they did go 1-2 in this stretch after week 1. So why am I so confident? Or why do I feel like we need to respect the bounce back? I don't even want to give them a status within the division, but we do need to respect the resilience that they have shown. You go against UNC, that game is close for about a quarter and a half, right? A lot of teams getting blown out off the rip. I ain't got to call no names. Y'all know this. A lot of teams are getting blown out off the rip. Soon as the ball snaps, these games are getting out of hand, period. Not this game against UNC. It did take a quarter and a half, so not a super long time, but it was still impressive nonetheless, and you were able to force a turnover in that game. You did get an interception off of UNC just to flex the muscle of that pass defense. Now you go to UTSA, this game was close for 3 quarters. They didn't really extend that lead until the 4th. You take the 17 points that they scored in the 4th quarter off the board, you're looking at a 35-24 game. That's what you were looking at going into the 4th quarter. Not a lot of people are going to look into the box score because the box score is irrelevant. You don't really care how many points are scored in each quarter. You just care about what the final result is. But I'm here to give that in between because there's a lot of things that happen between the start of the game and the end of the game. And that's why you listen to Locked On HBCU, so that you can have all of that. I got you. I'm not going to let you down. I'm going to tell you right now, you're looking at a team that got a lot of offense going early in the game. You're looking at a team that got a lot of defensive progress, and I think they've really shown themselves to be a team that when it comes to swag play, you might have to watch the defense. These are things that we were not able to say after 1 week of action. Really, like, I don't even say wasn't able to say as in we couldn't come to this conclusion. I mean, there was no reason to feel like they were going to be this strong defensive team or an offense that really was able to put up a lot of points. They just hadn't done it. But I thought they did really good. And this defense has shown consistent ability to make plays. They're not always stopping you as far as stalwart, but they have been play makers. They have had an interception in every single game this year except for the last one. And they made up for that. They said, you know what? We ain't getting any interceptions. But what we did do is force 2 fumbles on the day. Recovered both of them. These are playmaking plays, right? So a turnover is the great equalizer. You drive 95 yards down the field, but you throw an interception in the end zone, it doesn't matter. You just wasted a lot of clock with absolutely no points to show for it. And it's not like you missed the field goal. No, I had a turnover. I forced this. These are great things when you're looking at it, man. I feel like Texas Southern has shown a lot. Now, we have to see if it fructifies. I'm never using that word. That word is terrible. But we have to see if they can fructify this into a victory against Alabama State. And I think it's very similar to Prairie View's game versus Bama State last week, because it's a situation where both teams are coming in to prove themselves, and Texas Southern has to prove that one game versus Southern was not a fluke. Not to me, because to me, this is just Southern got caught in the midst of a hot stretch for Texas Southern at the worst. For me, they need to prove that it's not a hot stretch. This is truly who they are this year. Kind of similar to what Prairie View had. They need to prove where they stand and things of that nature, while Alabama State is going to prove that, or looking to prove that, hey, we're not a bad team. Like, we can go toe-to-toe and beat teams in the SWAC. And if you go 0-2 in the SWAC, it's going to look less and less like that is the case. But I'm very excited. I'm very happy. I think that my Texas Southern Tigers, regardless of what happens from here going out, they have shown the ability to bounce back from a loss. So at the worst, I know that the 2022 Texas Southern Tigers are resilient. Now going forward, we are going to be talking about some of the things against that Mississippi Valley State had going against Jackson State, and why that shouldn't be too much of a concern when thinking about Jemari Jones' future as the quarterback of the Delta Devils. I want to tell you about LinkedIn because for all of my small business owners, you're getting into a busy time. We're only a couple of days away from October and it's spooky season. You're going to need that Halloween rush, right? For some of my small businesses. When you get into November, you're going to have that Cyber Monday rush towards the end of, or Black Friday, both of them at the end of November. And then right there is holiday season. Now we're just rolling. The end of the year is always hectic for all businesses. That's why you need to get the people that you want to talk to, the people that you know you can count on faster. No getting this guy, no getting Jimmy from around the way because, oh, whatever happened. No, let's go ahead and get Rhonda. Let's go ahead and get Sean. Let's go ahead and get these people who we know match up with everything that you want your business to be. So if Andre is the guy who fits perfectly in your field and you know he's going to be a good fit, go ahead and reach out to him right now. No need going through all these different candidates when you know he's going to be the guy who fills your spot. Use the purple hashtag hiring frame and go to the network that is 100 or 810 million people deep. 40 million people visit LinkedIn on a weekly basis. All you have to do is post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I want to talk about Jemari Jones. And things started off a tad bit slow, but things should be able to pick up. I won't make any predictions on what he will be, but I will say that the road gets a little bit smoother from here on. Jemari Jones had a really rough start to the beginning of his Mississippi Valley State tenure, and honestly, it's not shocking. It should not be shocking. As much as I have hyped up Jemari Jones, his first game starting was against Jackson State. Jackson State, the boa constrictor that I was talking about earlier, the one that just squeezes the life out of you defensively, that's the team that he had to go against. And he was able to throw a touchdown on his first drive, or not even on his first drive, on his first pass, right? Because they had 2 runs and then he had a 20-yard touchdown pass. But after that, it was done. There wasn't much for him to do at that point because Jackson State has the best pass rush. Arguably, they have the most sacks in the SWAC. They have the least amount of yards allowed in the SWAC. There's not many holes that you can attack. If you go against Jackson State and you struggle, it shouldn't be shocking. Everybody has. Everybody struggled. And this is your first game in the SWAC. You were a JUCO player last season. The only game that you got in, you played Delta State, a D2 school. This is really your first game on an FCS level playing for Mississippi Valley. I think I could see you struggle no matter who you were going against, but going against Jackson State, the boa constrictor, wrap it up. Can I call Jackson State the boa constrictor even though their mascots, the Tigers? I know you're here, JSU. Let me know. They have the second leading sack artist in the SWAC. There's so many things that are going to contribute to a poor offensive performance when you have to go against Jackson State. But luckily, you only got to face that team one time. This ain't the NFL, and if they're in your division, doesn't mean you have to face them twice. So you're done with them, and now you're going to have FAMU, you're going to have Alcorn, and you're going to have Alabama State. Those are the 3 next games that you're going to have, and this is a tad bit interesting because now Jemari Jones, who was a high-quality JUCO transfer, should get another chance. I know that TJ Goodwin got in the game. Stop it. There's no reason that you shouldn't have Jemari Jones get another shot. He is not coming in to get, I think he had 13 passes and just get benched. No, stop that. Please do not do it. I'm going to take the upside player at all times. And I think that Jemari Jones has a very high upside. And until he shows that he cannot hit his ceiling, I'm not going to go to the guy who doesn't have as high a ceiling as he does. That's just my take on it. Personally, when it comes to quarterbacks, give me the ceiling guy 9 times out of 10. Every now and then I'll take the floor guy, but most times I'm going to take the guy who has a pretty high ceiling. So when I'm looking at Jemari Jones, the next game is against FAMU. FAMU has not defended the pass well. They really haven't rushed the passer well. They haven't done too much really well defensively. I'm sure they're going to try to fix that. They had a comeback victory against Alabama A&M on last week. But they really haven't shown great promise defensively. This is a game that you want to get right. This is a game where you feel like you might be able to start a little bit of momentum. Then you go into Alcorn, who, while they don't have the greatest pass defense stats as far as yards go, they can heat that pocket up. They can heat your quarterback up. And that's not really a good combination for a team in Mississippi Valley who has not really protected their quarterback well. All right, you got that. Now you have Alabama State, who defends the ball really, or defends the pass really well. They're one of the best pass defense teams in the country, or in the SWAC, I should say, in the conference. They're number 2 right behind Jackson State. All right. But they haven't heated up the pocket that well. So in every other game, you feel like there might be somewhere where you can exploit. Jemari Jones might be able to use his legs in the latter 2 of those games, whether that's escaping the pocket because pass rush is getting around, maybe finding an avenue to rush and get more yards, or if it's just extending the play because the coverage is so good. Legs might be a very important part of his Alcorn and Alabama State games. So overall, let's not panic. It's not time to press that panic button when it comes to Jemari Jones and Mississippi Valley State. I'm just trying to tell you that these next 3 games are times when I can actually see what I'm going to get from Jones if we're being impatient. Even being impatient, we should not only give him 1 game against the best defense in the conference. It's completely not fair for him. These next 3 games, especially if he makes it through, should tell the story of who we can expect Jemari Jones and Mississippi Valley to be going to 2022 and also 2023. I appreciate you making us your first listen of the day. Every day, I have a pod or a poll up right now on my Twitter at South Exclusives for what the game of the week is going to be. Whatever game isn't picked, there's 3 of them, I might do a topic on that. I don't think people are picking Campbell last time I checked, North Carolina Central versus Campbell. So I might come in and do a segment about that on tomorrow's episode. Now, in the meantime, in between time, make sure you're checking out our conference shows for your second listen of the day. And if you're looking for me, you can find me on Twitter, the same place you can find my poll at South Exclusives. Until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.